Welcome to the Polish Podcast, a space dedicated to emboldening women in their faith and work. I'm your host, Jane Doerman. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to invite you to be a part of our Polish community. Hit that like button and subscribe to our podcast to stay updated with our latest episodes. At Polish Network, we recognize that your work is more than just a job. It's a calling. That's why we're here to provide the connections, development, and spiritual nourishment you need to flourish. Each episode delves deep into topics that resonate with our Polish community. So join us as we hear from inspiring guests who share their unique perspectives and experiences as Christian women in the workplace. Well, no matter what brought you here today, we are thrilled to have you with us. Our aim is to ignite your passion and to empower you to excel on your leadership journey. So let's dive in and explore together. Have you ever felt like your leadership efforts aren't sparking the motivation and engagement that you hoped for? Imagine the power of leading with enthusiasm, igniting the passion of your team, inspiring them to reach new heights. And that's what we're talking about this month. And today's guest is a perfect example of this vibrant spirit. And her name is Katie Armentrout. Katie Armentrout is the founder of People-fluence, an organization dedicated to putting people at the heart of business. People-fluence trains leaders to build trust and foster a positive, productive workplace. Katie's passion for organizational health and her enthusiastic approach to leadership make her the perfect fit for today's theme. Katie's passion to serve people, though, started in her youth, working for the family business.
Where I officially started, I was 12 years old working in my parents' retail store.
Nice.
And this was before the internet existed. For anyone listening that may remember that time, you actually had to walk into a store and shop. And that was my training grounds because child labor laws don't apply to your own children. So I was 12 years old working in the warehouse with my older sister, and it was a gift store. And then I think around like 14 or 15, maybe I was on the floor working with customers. And so I was trained in customer service. Like that's where it all started. I have a great love of people, and I didn't realize it at the time, of course, but reflecting on it now, all of like the years that I spent there, I learned how to connect with people very quickly. And I had to determine like, okay, what kind of gift are you here to buy? A wedding gift, a baby gift, a funeral gift, a birthday gift, like the whole gamut, and then help them through that. So that journey in the store. So that was where I started. I was trained in customer service, and then I really parlayed that into a career in sales. And I think that I had so much success in sales because I was first trained in customer service. And just this is how you treat people really well and learn how to read people and ask questions and draw the questions out of them. And let's be honest, deal with irate customers sometimes. And be able to have those conversations and dissolve it. So started in retail customer service, 20 years in B2B sales across Fortune 500 companies, nonprofits, private companies. And most recently, I did spend 13 years at Procter & Gamble here in Cincinnati. Oh, cool. Yeah, I left 3 years ago and then immediately went to work for a nonprofit called Changing Gears. I have to give them a shout out. I love the organization, and I was their marketing director. And while I was there, I just felt this nudge. I just felt God calling me to like, no, I've called you to leadership. And then I stepped out on my own a couple of years ago. So I think it's about 2 years, and really developed People-fluence into what it is now.
Katie's story is a testament to the reality that God is always working in our story, and He's developing who we're becoming. From her early days working in her parents' shop to navigating the world of sales and corporate and marketing for nonprofits, Katie has had numerous opportunities to grow and harness skills that ultimately serve her greatest passion, training and equipping leaders to understand and build trust with members of their team. Katie also had the experience of serving on teams where leaders really did not listen at all. A leadership pain point that awakened Katie to the importance of leading with enthusiasm.
I have 3 kids, and so this was, I was a national sales director. This was sometime after my 3rd one was born. And we were, we always have these quarterly meetings in a large corporation, and they fly everyone to a nice place like Florida or Phoenix in July or something like that. And then we sit in a windowless conference room for, 3 or 4 days. And it's a huge investment because on that, the one I'm thinking of in this moment, there was probably about 15 of us there. And so they're, flying the entire leadership team in, like our VP and, everyone's there. And there's always a gap in the business. And it's like, okay, we're behind, X number of dollars or X number of cases. How do we make up that gap? And then, we spend the next, couple days from 7 a.m. to like 6 p.m. giving out ideas. And then one by one, leadership's like, nope, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. But you still have to do, you still have to close the gap. And I remember sitting back and like, this is years of this. This is just the pattern of how it's always been and how these meetings were conducted. And I remember sitting back thinking, why did you invest in flying all of us here? Like, we're all making like 6-figure salary. So just the, like, if you think about the hourly wage and just the salary investment, plus the hotel, it was always a nice hotel, plus all the flights, the meals, the team building at Top Golf or a ropes course or whatever we're doing, like you on the beach, like you think about all of that stuff, like that huge investment to talk about, and you're asking our opinion, but then at the end of the day, nothing changes. You're not listening to us. So why are you making this like 6-figure investment just to not listen to us? Just don't even put up the front and just say, from now on, we're going to do this. Like, we don't really care what your opinion is. No one would say that, but I mean, it honestly would have been more refreshing on that team if someone just had said that. And I'm thinking I'm being pulled away from my family. We're all being pulled away from our families just to sit here. And I'm like, there's got to be more. There's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be more to life. And then following that, there was something I was really pushing for internally. I'm like, hey, we need this claim or we need this product. And I put together a list of our top customers that are asking for it, the volume, like the dollars associated with it. And I said, if we don't deliver on this product in this time frame, we will lose these customers. And then sure enough, they didn't do it. And then sure enough, we started losing those customers. And I'm like, I don't know what else, I was just at such a loss. So that was, those were like 2 different moments in the same time frame that I just kept thinking there's got to be a better way. Why aren't they listening to us?
This experience sparked the passion already brewing in Katie's heart to serve teams through training leaders to seek a better way of leading their teams. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a short break. And when we come back, Katie and I talk about organizational health and how we as leaders can embrace the vibrant spirit of leading with enthusiasm. So we'll see you soon. Are you a working woman looking to elevate your leadership this year? Polished Collaboratories could be your next right step in moving forward in your leadership development. Polished Collaboratories are small groups modeled after executive peer groups, yet available to working women at all levels of leadership. Collaboratory members dive into leadership training with a faith-forward perspective for 12 months. This is your opportunity to tap into diverse perspectives, conquer challenges, and achieve your goals in a united sisterhood. New groups are launching in 2024. We want you to be a part of it. So go to polishednetwork.org/collaboratories to learn more. Katie's organization, People-fluence, was birthed into existence by this haunting question: is there a better way? Katie kept chasing this question throughout the experiences she's had in her work, which led her to this concept of organizational health.
It took me leaving corporate to really understand what the concept was. And so it's the idea of most organizations, like you hire for skills and you hire really smart people. Organizational health is the idea of smart and healthy. So companies hire like smart salespeople for, marketing, sales, finance, engineering, products, all the things. And they're hiring more for IQ and a job fit, right? And that's good. You need to do that. But then the idea of healthy is usually not taken as, there's not as much thought put into it. And healthy is really a culture fit. And so a healthy organization has minimal politics in it. It has minimal silos. It's higher teamwork, higher productivity, and it just creates an organization and a team that is much more effective and productive, and they can have deeper conversations with each other. And so when you have a really healthy culture, because people usually, they don't leave their job because they don't like their job. They usually leave their people, right? They leave the leader. They'll quit on a leader before they'll actually quit on a job. So it's like usually they like what they're doing. They just don't like the culture of where they are. Something isn't aligned. So you want to hire for the skill and like the IQ, but healthy is also the EQ. So organizational health is like, it's not how smart is your organization. Usually every organization is smart, but it's how healthy is it when you look at those metrics of, are people happy? Are they doing work that fulfills them? How well are people working together? Are you not having those meetings before the meetings, right? It's like all the gossip and the politics that come into it. And so when you have an organization that's healthy, that will multiply this, like the smartness, the intelligence of your organization will be, completely multiplied when it's also healthy. So you need both. You can't just have healthy if the people don't know how to do the job, but you want both of them. And so that's the idea of like, is your organization, is your culture, is that healthy? And if it is, like, the sky's the limit. That's when you really see teams and companies just blowing results out of the water.
That sounds amazing. Just this,
it does,
because I for sure have worked for businesses that were not healthy, and I remember like yearning for like, this would be such a great job, but the people I work with are driving me nuts, and like the politics of it, it was toxic. It was not great. And I know many people listening right now have probably experienced a similar thing, or maybe they're currently experiencing that right now. So I'm curious if you could share with us some like specific examples, or I don't know if there are any case studies out there where improving organizational health has resulted in tangible benefits for teams or organizations. Do you have any information like that?
Yeah, in the industry, there are indexes. Gallup has a number of stats on it. McKinsey has an organizational health index. So it is a thing widely.
Absolutely.
Very much.
Absolutely.
But it comes down to things like employee engagement. And that's where our people fulfilled with what they do. So there's a lot of case studies out there, when I think about my own client base, there was a leader that called me because she knew there wasn't trust on their team. She knew there wasn't trust on their team. And she's like, can you, like, what do I do? And I said, well, how is it showing up? And it was a very fast paced culture. And she's like, we're just not able to give each other like feedback. People are afraid to give each other feedback. And right, like it all kind of comes down to people don't know how to, when there's a lack of, there has to be trust. And then the next thing is they have to be able to have those tough conversations with people. And feedback, meaning you have to give someone positive, like encouraging feedback. And then also if they're not doing their job correctly, they need to know. And so most people shy away from it. They just don't know how to have that conversation, or they think they have to be really, it's depending on the situation. You can't be like shame and blame and yell at someone.
Right.
And you can't be so nice about it, but you have to be just direct. So when I started working with them, I did an offsite with the team, and there's some real actual tools that exist. There's so much, like personality tests are one. I am certified with the Working Genius, which is by the Table Group. Also the team assessment by the Table Group is another one. But I won't get into that, but there are very real tools out there that can help people understand, oh, this is how I'm wired. And this is how my group is wired. This is how everyone on my team is wired. And you start to understand like, oh, wow, this is how I think. Like, I'm really good at invention. You're really good with people. And you start to appreciate the differences. So we started with that, just with some of those simple tools. And when you implement those, they got to know one another, build trust with one another. And then I think it was, this was the first quarter. I had to like think through all the results. I was like, and then after a single quarter, the dynamics with the team, like I sat in on some of their meetings and they were engaging in tough conversations just on a regular basis. And they were getting through them much faster. And so what was happening is that when they were like filling orders on the floor, things were like their results improved, their fill rates improved because they were now doing things correctly, because they weren't like, oh, wow, like Jane's not doing her job, but I'm afraid to tell her. Right.
Yeah.
So the relationships improved, and then the other metrics improved too. And ultimately they had a higher revenue and higher profit. I can't take credit for all of that with the work. There's a lot of other things going on, but certainly like when you like take the stress out of the team, take the toxicity out of the relationship. And I teach people that like, let's have conflict around ideas and problems, not around people. So that's a high level. Without boring you with a bunch of numbers and statistics, but that's essentially how it goes. But they start to see their other metrics improve, that like job satisfaction, employee engagement, and the overall morale of the organization improves because people, they just get along better and they're more productive.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about a leader who may be listening right now and they're like, you know what, our culture feels a little off, right? It's maybe not the healthiest. Maybe they're leaning in like, okay, I'm listening to what you're saying. I don't know, what are some like observable signs, or, maybe we're a little naive to it, but what are some signs or indicators that suggest an organization might have an unhealthy culture, and how can the leader address those issues proactively?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it does sound kind of fluffy. Even saying like politics, but silos is a big one. So, and I work a lot with leadership teams. And so when you look at a leadership team and there's, negative conflict, like you have to think of your leadership team as one united team. And that's the most important team over all the individual functions. So you can't say like, well, marketing ran a great campaign, so therefore we had a great year, even though sales were down, like that's
right.
Can't, like that doesn't make sense. So silo, if that type of dynamic of those comments are being made, that's an indication that there are silos. The meeting before the meeting, or not the meeting before, the meeting after the meeting, if you have to have, that's like the gossip of, well, God, I can't believe Katie said that. I totally disagree, right? So the meeting after the meeting, it means that people are afraid to give their opinion in the meeting itself. So that's an indicator of a lack of trust, because it's hard to present your idea if the leader isn't open to, if the leader says, okay, this is the strategy, and you're like, I have a bunch of questions, but I'm afraid to ask. Like that's a sign there's a lack of trust. Other things, if meetings are boring.
Yep.
And I mean boring because the meeting should be there because the team is solving problems together.
Yeah.
So if you don't have debate, I would use the word conflict a lot, but healthy conflict. But if if your leader presents this big idea or a big change or a culture shift or a reorg, and first of all, everyone is surprised by it, and no one feels, and everyone just rubber stamps it, they're like, okay, then that's a big issue. Like your meetings should be like vibrant with discussion, because that's where you're really getting the diversity of everyone's thoughts on the team. It's like, no, you play a critical role. There's a reason on your team. There's a reason that I have you specifically on the team. And a good leader wants all of those opinions and skill sets. And a good leader can draw that out of people. There's a nonprofit that I'm working with now, and they knew that they were in trouble when they presented to their board. And it was like this 3-year strategy. We want to build a new building. They presented to a dozen board members. And then there was like, okay, great. Sounds great. Right? And the executive director was like, no, time out. Like, no.
Yeah.
This isn't perfect. And so you want to welcome those, so that's why you want to have exciting meetings. And I say exciting, it's exciting to me, but you want to welcome those differences of opinions, because that's going to get things to a better place. So the leader has to be vulnerable and has to have some self-awareness to be open to that feedback.
Yeah. You had mentioned that, leaders need to have a self-awareness, and I would also say probably an awareness of the people that they're leading too, and just the different, what makes them tick. And you had mentioned a little earlier some tools that you offer through your work at People-fluence to help start cultivating that awareness. Could you share a little bit more about that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole bunch of tools. Well, I mean, my favorite, since I mentioned it, the Working Genius is one of my favorites. And again, this is, credit to Pat Linchoni out at the Table Group. And all the personality tests are really valuable, whether it's Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, whatever it is, but because they do teach you self-awareness. It's just the understanding of, number one, how I am wired. And then the second breakthrough is that not everybody's wired like me.
Yeah.
People think different. And so those are the two really objectives of any personality test, is to build self-awareness within the organization. What I love about Working Genius is that it isn't just a personality test, but it is a team productivity tool. So it goes through the 6 types of work that every project goes through. And then each person has 2 types of work that we call their genius, that they just naturally, that energizes them. It's about the joy and fulfillment and energy. And it's like, these are 2 types of work that I love to do. On the flip side, here's 2 types of work that completely drain me. And then there's 2 that it's like, okay, I like this, but if I did this work all the time forever, I would burn out. And so we often think that burnout comes from having too much to do. But a lot of time burnout comes from we're doing things that we just don't energize us, things that we don't like to do. For me, if I was doing administrative work all day, I would burn out. I did, actually. That was,
me too.
Right?
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, if you put me in like a think tank and all we did was talk about ideas all day, I would also burn out. I'd be like, oh my God. That's me personally.
Yes.
So the Working Genius that outlines these 6 types of work, going through the whole process, and then you map out for the leader, it'll map out your team and say, hey, all these across these 6 types of work, this is where your team because you want a balance of all 6 types. And if you have a gap in any type, then that's going to lead to operational inefficiencies and a lack of productivity. So the 6 types are wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time going on to it. You can, it's a great tool because then you, as a leader, understand how you're wired. You understand how your people are wired. But then, unlike any other personality test, you see how they all fit together. And so, if you have a lack of discernment on your team, that means people don't feel comfortable. Like, that's the analysis and the evaluation of a decision. I had a team I worked with that no one liked discernment. No one got energy out of it. And so they're going from invention, and it's like, okay, we have all these ideas. And now it's like, pick which one you love the most. Well, I love all of my children. I can't pick which one. And then you move to galvanizing. So they were like, idea, launch, idea, launch, idea, launch.
Oh my gosh.
And the whole team was burnt out because they're like, it was the spaghetti strategy. It was like, we're just throwing everything against the wall to see what sticks. Mm-hmm. And so through this tool, they learn like, oh, wow, we that's what we're missing is discernment. And then we talked about ways to address it and how to fill that gap. But it's wonderful because it really it identifies the gap in work, and then you can like see how it fits, with the people in your organization and who really likes to do what.
Mm-hmm. And I can see the benefits of having that, especially as a leader who's building their team, to see that gap, right? If that exists, and it makes them aware that as maybe they're interviewing or trying to hire someone to fill that gap, it's like they know what they're looking for,
Yeah.
And I assume this is one of many tools that you have to offer through People-fluence, correct?
Yes. And one other quick story. I love sharing the story about Working Genius too. I worked for I worked for a manager, and he had a lot of wonder, which is just, they're really good at asking questions. It's the first step of the process, and they're very responsive to the environment. Is there a better way? Why are we doing this? They really help define the problem that you want to solve. So he has a lot of wonder, and they ask questions. And so I was working directly for him, and I come in like, hey, we're redoing our website. We talked through this. I'm like, I need your signature on this to start the work. And so we're at Tenacity. We're at the end of this project, at the end of this process, we're about to I just need your signature. This should have been a 5-minute conversation, maybe even 3 minutes. And because he has wonder, he was like, well, God, what are we trying to do here? Is this the right thing? I mean, everyone has some type of story around this.
Sure.
So because we didn't have the tool at the time, we didn't know the common language of Working Genius. I thought when he was asking those questions about the project, I thought he was questioning me. I was like, oh my God, what did I miss? He's like, I'm like, hey, I need your signature. And he said, well, what are we trying to accomplish here? Is this the right path? I was like wide-eyed. I spent the next 75 minutes walking him through the whole process from, wonder invention all the way to from his question all the way to the point of tenacity of and I eventually got a signature, but it took me 75 minutes, totally derailed us. And then my morale was totally shot because I thought I missed something in the process.
Wow.
I was like, what did I do wrong? Now I look back at that, and he and I are still friends this day. We laugh about it because I was like, now going in, if we were to redo that conversation with Working Genius, hey, I need your signature on this. God, what are we trying to do here? Hey, all due respect, that ship has sailed. We're at Tenacity. I need your signature. We've already had these conversations. And he'd be like, okay, cool. Sign, have a nice weekend. Right? And it wouldn't affect my morale. I think I even had to take a walk after that. I was like, what did I do?
Oh my goodness.
But that's when I talk about it being your organization, your team becomes more productive. When you eliminate that noise in your environment, just by understanding everyone's strengths, it is possible for your team to become more productive, more effective. We each would have gotten an hour and a half back in our schedules that day.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's, I love sharing that story because, he and I still laugh about it, but it's that's a very tangible example that I think everyone can relate to. They're encountering that in some aspect. And that's, again, you want to have those questions around the problems and the problems and the issues, not around the people. And without a common language or a tool to really talk about, to like give you a framework, then people think like, what did I do wrong? Shame and blame comes in.
Yeah, it's true. And without that self-awareness piece, exactly. It's when you were telling that story, I've been in similar situations, and I just remember thinking like, I'm sorry, are we having the same conversation here? Am I taking crazy pills? Like I thought we were done. I just need a signature. I just need this to be over to move on. And they're wanting to circle back. And I'm like, no. Yeah. The conversation's over. And I feel like a lot of us can find ourselves in those vicious cycles sometimes with our leaders. Or maybe we're the leader, hopefully not. But I can see the value of having that piece of self-awareness and when we talk about being, leading with enthusiasm, enthusiasm is not just like rah, 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 go team, go. It's like being a leader that others want to follow, that want to be on your team. And I see that as like this crucial piece of self-awareness, which ultimately will cultivate awareness in the people we work with or lead, which will ultimately lead to a healthy organization. And it's like it goes one next to the next to the next until all of a sudden we've got a healthy and smart organization. We're productive. We're working together. We aren't afraid of conflict because as a new friend of mine shared with me recently, conflict is care in a sense, because it's almost like evidence of this foundation of trust and safe environment to just bring your humanness to work.
Yeah, it is. We often at P&G always said like bringing your whole self to work. But here's like a big misconception about leadership. Please. Especially in like the nonprofit world and in the church world too. I would say it probably is it's there a lot more, but it exists everywhere. But the misconception is that, I have to be nice. Like above all else, like I want to be nice. And if I'm just nice, people will share their opinions and let me tell you, to niceness, like if you're just nice, two of the most ineffective, I would say most damaging leaders that created the most toxic cultures that I've ever had, two of them are two of the nicest guys you would ever meet in your life.
Yeah.
And it's because our greatest weakness lies on the other side of our greatest strength. And so they're incredibly nice people, but they're too nice to hold people accountable. And so what a healthy organization looks like, there's trust, there's conflict, like healthy conflict, there's commitment. So another thing is like if your employees are committing to do work but not actually doing it, they're not actually committed. So there's commitment and buy-in, there's accountability. And then when all those four things are in place in order, then the top is, then you reach the top of the pyramid, and that's those team results. And that's the 5 behaviors of a team. Also Pat Lencioni in the table group. But when I read this stuff, like, again, I'd left corporate. I'm like, where has this been all my life?
Yeah.
And when I started introducing these tools to teams, now again, they have that common language to identify. It's like people can feel it. They can feel the toxicity, but they don't know what to do about it. And so just niceness isn't the answer. The best leaders are the ones that are direct, kind, like, kindness is clarity, but they're kind, they're clear, and they're direct, and they develop people. They give them the encouragement, and they give them, like the feedback isn't synonymous with negative, but they give both sides of the coin to help the people and the team get better. And that's what I get. Like, so if your leader is enthusiastic about that, and about like the team culture, then that again will just multiply anything that you have in the organization.
Oh, I think it's so encouraging that you're out here trying to make a difference in all our teams and our leadership.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of us, I bet you, if you asked a bunch of people or almost every person, they've had an experience where they're like, yeah, I've been on a team where the leader was not great.
Right. And it's,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, because we know what like shame and blame looks like. That's easy to spot. Those are the people that are easy to let go. But right?
Yes.
Or to or you leave. Those are the people that are easy to quit.
Yes.
I'm moving to another team, another company, whatever it is. Like, that's obvious. I wish more people would just be like, I don't, but you know what I mean? Like, I've had to let go of a number of people like over the years in different roles. And I'm like, God, it would be so much easier if they were a jerk, right? Because that's very clear.
Yes.
But it's not that simple. And so, because you're like, well, I like these people just because a lot of the times on your team, you have a team full of people, especially nonprofits and churches and corporate, like they're smart, but they're also good people. Like they're good individuals. They're not evil. They're not, they're individual. Like they're not toxic individually, but when they're just not trained, like on how to work together and have these tough conversations, things get swept under the rug. They don't know how to talk to one person directly. That's also biblical. It's like, take it to that person first. I wish I could quote the verse at this point, but maybe Colossians, Corinthians, I don't know. But you take it to them first before you escalate. And if people just followed that principle, you can work things out, a lot before putting all that pressure on the leader of making the leader or parent. This all applies to parenting. Feel like they have to be the referee when you have people who don't get along.
That's a good word for us, Katie, to consider as we learn to grow as leaders and lean into what does a healthy organization look like. And I just have really appreciated your insights for our audience. We're going to push pause for a moment to share more with you about the Polished Network. And when we return, Katie will take a spin in our Ask Me Anything hot seat, and you're not going to want to miss it. So stay tuned. Recent reports indicate that isolation, loneliness, and lack of leadership growth opportunities weigh heavily on working women today. And these are just some of the many reasons why the Polished Network is on a mission to embolden women in their faith and work. And we invite you to join us as a Polished partner. Visit polishednetwork.org/give and help us ensure a steady foundation for women to find the vital community they crave, the professional development they deserve, and the gospel they need. Well, welcome back, friends, to the Polished Podcast. We hope you're enjoying our conversation today with our guest, Katie Armentrout. But now it's time to add a dash of spontaneity and a sprinkle of fun. It's time for Ask Me Anything!
Yes,
I like that enthusiasm, Katie. Well, Katie, this is how Ask Me Anything works. It's a chance for us to peel back the layers to learn more about the woman behind the work and the quirks behind your expertise. I've curated a few questions for you, and we're just going to follow our curiosity today to learn more about you. Are you in?
I'm in.
All right. Question number 1. What is a book that you've read that you think everyone needs to read, and why?
Oh my gosh, I have a whole shelf of them back here.
I know you're a reader. I thought this would be a good question.
Just one.
Just one.
Oh, man. Just one. That's really, really hard. I'm going to go with my first love, actually. So customer service, unreasonable hospitality.
Oh my gosh.
You read this?
Yes, I have. Katie, I've asked a couple people in previous episodes if they've read it, and they haven't. I said, you must read this book. So tell me your takeaways. Why must we read this book?
So again, I was raised in customer service. And so the way, Giardo?
I think so. Yes.
I'm
We'll
gonna
just say yes.
I'm gonna put this on my LinkedIn and tag him. And
Yes. I love it.
But he comes from the restaurant industry, and I've done a lot of work in the restaurant industry as well in my career.
Cool.
And even now, some of my clients are in the restaurant industry. But he's from really high end. He worked for Danny Meyer, and if you're in restaurants, like Danny Meyer, but he talks about just ridiculously over-serving people who walk into the restaurant. And I love it because whatever you put into the world comes back. And it's like, if you just simply treat people well, when I first started my company, people ask what I do. I'm like, I really just teach others how to be kind. And you treat people well and you give them an experience. And you go above and beyond to serve other people. They love it. Your team loves it. And then people also pay for it. Like, if you want to, I'm going to feel myself getting on my soapbox, but I'm like,
yes,
if
please.
You are like a business owner, and you're like, how do I differentiate myself? It's service. I mean, respond to people, do it in a timely manner, write a personal thank you note. He in this too, another book I love, he references is The 1 Minute Manager, which is that idea of feedback, like instant feedback, instant, simple, direct feedback. And that's part of the culture so it exemplifies all the 5 behaviors that I talked about. But the core of it is just, how do we go above and beyond to serve our customers? And that's just the success that they had, with the restaurant. So I love it. I was so excited to read it. I'm like, this is what my dad trained me on, I do think everyone needs to, you can never underestimate the power of customer service.
Yeah. That book was very inspirational for me. And something I really loved too was how they equipped their workers, not just, they didn't just serve the client, they served the people that worked for them as well, and treated them with such care, and empowered them to do things as they were growing. My favorite is, wasn't it the coffee was not great? Yeah. Or maybe it was their beer service or something. And they said, hey, both of them. And they're like, hey, this person knows this is your new job. And we just created this whole new thing, go wild. And they did research, and they just went all out, because this was a place where they were passionate and they were equipped to learn and experiment. And I was like, I want to work for him. Yeah. This is awesome.
And the word empowered, that's, when I go back to that pivotal moment that I had when I'm sitting back, why are you bringing us all here? Why are you investing hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring us all here to not listen to it? We were not empowered in that role. And that's the thing that makes it easier on the leader, is if you empower them, it takes the pressure off you as a leader. It makes everything work more productive, because they can say oh yeah, I can I don't need a manager to okay this. I can handle it myself. And it just happens much quicker, and people are happier with the service. I love that you love the book too.
Oh, I was I got so excited. I literally have talked to 2 people, recorded conversations. So this would be even a great progression to be somebody read it. This was not a planned moment. This was really cool. This was a God moment. That's what it was.
I am not sponsored by Will at all, but huge fan of his work. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, Katie, I think I have an idea of what your answer might be, but I'll be curious. What's the most important lesson you've learned about leadership throughout your whole career?
Yeah. The best leader is a self-aware leader.
Yes. Yes. So good. So good. And very evident in the work that you do on the day to day. And then let's see here. Something I learned about you in our meet and greet is that you have a weekly movie night with your family, as do I. And I'm curious, what's your favorite movie and why do you like it? Or do you have one?
I do. And it's Miracle. So The Miracle on Ice, the 1980 U.S. gold winning.
Oh, yeah. I was I'm trying to remember it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm laughing because I'm like, I quote it in every workshop that I do.
Oh, nice.
Which was not intentional. I'm like, oh, this is why I love the movie so much. Because, and I made my family watch it again. And like my 7-year-old is like, this is boring.
This is boring, Mom.
I'm like, oh, I've watched too many all the Barbie and
all the
My
Barbie
Little,
movies.
I don't even know all the things, but I love it because, it is that underdog story that we all love. It's a classic underdog story. Mm-hmm. But in the very beginning, the coach, when he's at the camp and he's like looking at everyone, and actually he's not, he just makes the list, and it's like day 1 of 5 of tryouts. And he makes the list and he hands it to the assistant. He's like, this is the roster. And the assistant's like, he looks at it. He's like, you don't even have some of the best players on here. And the coach says, I'm not looking for the best players. I'm looking for the right ones. And so he knew. And then the other thing, I love the whistle scene when he's having them run sprints back and forth. He's like, again, because he's like, if you don't want to win in the game, I'll make you win, or work during the game, I'll make you work here. And he has them like run sprints for hours or skate sprints for hours until they finally one of them realizes why they're doing it. And he says, the name on the front of your jersey is more important than the name on the back.
Oh, wow.
And so
mic drop.
It is. So yeah, it's a great story, a great movie. And I end up quoting it because it is about leadership and teamwork. It's exactly what I do.
Hey, you know what? There's something about those sports movies and just those coaches, that just really exemplify good leadership, and we're drawn to those stories. So I think that's so cool that's one of your favorites. I'm gonna have to rewatch that one. It's been a minute since I've seen it. So but Katie, I just thank you so much for sharing with us. And here's the thing, friends, we just want you to be a part of the conversation too. We want your questions and your curious musings and your wild wonderings about our guests. So if you want to submit a question to us, all you have to do is go to our website at polishednetwork.org, submit your questions there today, and be a Polish Podcast MVP. Hey friends, after a long winter and a challenging spring, it's time to turn up the volume on summer with the Polish Summer Mixtape Series. We're remixing our usual Polish podcast format to share with you the heart and the soul of the Polish Network through the voices of our inspiring community leaders. Tune in each week to meet phenomenal women from across the U.S. and be uplifted by scripture, encouraging devotionals, and their firsthand experiences leading within our community that will strike a chord and renew your heart and soul. If you've had a rough season, or you need a reminder that your work matters, or you're just looking for a community of ambitious women seeking to serve the Lord with everything that they've got, this series is for you. Tune in on July 3rd and discover the heart behind Polish Network and our chapters. Check it out on our YouTube channel. You can also listen at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Let's make this summer a hit together. Go to polishednetwork.org to learn more. So based on our conversation today, Katie, about leading with enthusiasm, defining organizational health, what it means to be a leader that others want to follow, what are some actionable steps that our listeners could take right now to start improving their own team or culture?
Yeah, absolutely. A basic one, it starts with self-awareness. Everything starts with self-awareness as the leader. And so I would recommend taking the Working Genius assessment. Again, any assessment works, Myers-Briggs, whatever. I'm partial to the Working Genius because of the team aspect, but that's a great first step to really understand how you're wired and then see how that has played out in your life and with your team. Another very actionable step too is if you're curious of okay, what is the culture that I've created, intentionally or unintentionally, is survey your team. And you can do this qualitatively, you could do it quantitatively, you could do it anonymously, you can do one-on-ones. It depends on the level of trust that's built. And if people don't open up, then that's a sign that there isn't enough trust, that they don't feel comfortable. But really, it's surveying your people to understand, start with your leadership team and just understand, like, hey, ask them some of these questions. Like, hey, do you feel comfortable opening up? And when you have a leader who models that vulnerability and that they're genuine and authentic and they're really interested, that's a good sign that people will open up and share their feedback. So that's really where you want to start is understanding yourself, like where you're at personally and who you are, and then where is your team at? How do they feel about you, and what do they think of the culture that's going on right now?
No, that's those are some really good next steps for us to take as we consider the teams that we lead or are a part of, and how we can proactively be a part of building a healthier culture that we work in. And I know that your organization, People-fluence, does offer off-site workshops that address organizational health. Could you share a little bit with us what that could look like, with our audience, and like what potential benefits could they see come out of those off-site workshops?
Yeah, absolutely. This is like the bread and butter of what I do.
Yes.
And it's really, so the workshops look like, it's completely custom to whatever fits the client's need and their schedule. So it can look like full day workshops or half day workshops, or there's some where I come in once a month for an hour or two, depending on their schedule. And we just dive into leadership topics. So we start with working genius assessment. There's also a team assessment that we start with. So again, it's a beautiful tool where it takes all the qualitative feelings and thoughts that people have, and it quantifies it, and it spits out this report that that ranks your team red, yellow, green on trust, commitment, conflict, accountability, and results. So those are great starting. So I send those out to the team, get those back, and then based on that, I'll come in and do work with the team and facilitate things around how do we build trust. There's actual exercises and things you can do to build trust. It's not trust falls. It's not ropes courses.
Okay.
It's not. And also when I talk about culture, people are like, well, yeah, we've got a ping pong table in the break room. I'm like, that's not culture. That's great.
No.
It's not culture. So, so in those workshops, I'm doing a lot of team exercises, not physical ones, but like, I mean, really like creating the environment where like, let's dive into these results. Some of it, they're really fun exercises and games. But a lot of it, it's like working through the teams, like, hey, let's talk about what does it mean to have trust on the team? Do you guys feel that this team has trust on it? And let's talk about ways to improve it. And it's so key to have an objective third party come in and do that work for you, because it's really hard for the leader to facilitate that on their own, because they've got their own biases and they're really a part of the team just like everyone else. So it's really, and I've been trained and certified and equipped to do this work. And that's the beauty of investing in a facilitator, to have them come in and run it so the leader can still lead. But I'm the one kind of engaging in those conversations, getting people to open up, and when there are tense moments, helping them work through it. So but we dive into all sorts of topics about training them how to have crucial conversations, how to have those tough conversations, how to have accountability. What does it look like? Here are tools to create your accountability. So any number of things along those lines of leadership development and teamwork. And I'll usually work with teams about a year, some 6 months, some to 2 years, but just on that monthly basis to help them really build it, because a one-day workshop isn't going to do anything really.
Right.
It takes time. So it's just when they're when you have a leader and a team that's committed to doing the work, it's just kind of those monthly interactions that really like show up over time.
Well, this sounds like an incredible resource, Katie, and we will be sure to link to all the things that you just mentioned here, so that people can get in contact with you. I just really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing your heart for leadership and how you are trying to make a difference in the different work cultures that we're a part of and the leaders that we're becoming. And so before we wrap things up, could you just share where people can connect with you online or follow the work of People-fluence? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is people-fluence.com. So it's people, F-L-U-E-N-C-E, People-fluence, all one word, .com.
Okay.
That's the easiest place. I'm also active on LinkedIn. So it's Katie Armentrout is LinkedIn / Katie Armentrout is where you can look me up, or you can look up People-fluence on LinkedIn and you'll find me. I am on Facebook and Instagram, but I really am just mainly, I'm not cool enough for TikTok.
Oh, me neither. I'm still trying to figure that out, but
Yep. And then as a special offer for the Polished community, if you are interested in taking the Working Genius Assessment, you can go to peoplefluence.com/polished and then reach out to me there, and you can take the Working Genius Assessment for free. So.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. What a gift. That's awesome. I was able to take it. I will endorse this. I was able to take it for part of a collaboratory that I'm a part of that Katie came and led us through. And it is very insightful. So I highly encourage you to take advantage of that. We will link all the links that you had mentioned in our show notes for this episode. So be sure to check it out. Katie, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. I thank you for having me. I love talking about this, and I love the Polish Network and everything that you guys are doing. So I'm happy to be a part of it.
Oh, well, we're happy to know you. That's awesome. Katie's passion for developing leaders has revolutionized my understanding of smart and healthy leadership. Effective leaders grow out of self-awareness, and the self-aware leader enhances their team and their work culture by staying attuned to the team's environment. They listen, they notice, and they recognize the potential and the possibilities that need to be brought into the light and ignited for the team to flourish. This is leading with enthusiasm at its core. But do you have a different takeaway from today's conversation? If so, let me know. Share your thoughts for this episode on our Instagram post, or if you're watching on YouTube, in the comments below. Let's continue this dialogue on leading with enthusiasm. As we wrap up this episode, I want to express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who plays a role in making the Polish Podcast a reality. The Polish Podcast is made possible in part by the generous support of Coca-Cola Consolidated. Thank you to Katie Armentrout for encouraging us to consider what it looks like to build a smart and healthy team for our organizations and our businesses. Be sure to check out all the links in our show notes if you want to connect with her and the work that she does through People-fluence. To our loyal listeners, your unwavering support and your engagement drive us to deliver content that resonates and emboldens. Thank you, Polish Network, for creating a nurturing community where women in the workforce can thrive and connect. A big thank you to White Oak Christian Church for their partnership and contributions to the production of these episodes. Leading with enthusiasm, it's not the same as being a nice leader. Nice leaders don't hold others accountable, but enthusiastic leaders do, which leads to building trust, which can lead to healthy conflict, and ultimately it leads to commitment. It may feel uncomfortable, but for the sake of your work culture, don't shy away from healthy conflict. Remember,
our greatest weakness lies on the other side of our greatest strength.
Well, if you're seeking a supportive community for your faith and work journey, I'd love to encourage you to join us on social media and our YouTube channel. Stay updated with our latest content by liking, subscribing, and taking a moment to rate and review the Polish Podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Your engagement means a lot, and it helps us create content that's meaningful to you. Until next time, my friends, this is Jane Doerman signing off. Keep moving forward and stay emboldened.